Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Effective Resume Thursdays. We're very glad you're with us. So just for those people who are on Zoom, there's a couple different options. There's a speaker view and a gallery view. We encourage everybody to pick the speaker view, which looks like what's on the lower left-hand corner of your screen. And where you see that red arrow, there's a couple little white bars right there. You can grab that with your mouse if you're on a PC, and you can slide it back and forth to make the speaker bigger or smaller, depending on whatever proportion you'd like to have the PowerPoint and the speaker to be shown. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channels for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you post a comment in the chat box or have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your comments, name, and picture to appear. For those people on Zoom, if you will, if you do have a question, we ask that you click on the chat box in the lower part of your screen and click on that where that blue arrow is and just enter your questions right there. That way we will remember to make sure we get them asked, and Carol will be monitoring it and I also monitor it. For those people who are on Facebook, we ask you just put the comments in the question box in the comment field, and I am monitoring the feed and I'll make sure we get those questions answered also. Well, good afternoon. My name is Jeff Morris. I founded Career DFW back in 2008 to help the unemployed into the DFW area. In 2012, I started Career USA to help people outside the DFW area. Since 2007, I facilitate and I lead the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, and I'll talk more about our programming upcoming at the end of this meeting. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. Our speaker today is Carol Brickel. She's a certified professional career coach. And Carol, I'll let you take it away.
Great. Thank you, Jeff, for that introduction, and thank you for facilitating these every week. I do appreciate all of your efforts. And now I will share my screen so that you can see my presentation. And I'll get it into slideshow mode. Is that looking good, Jeff? You see?
Good.
Good. So welcome to everyone for Effective Resume Thursday. And thank you for taking time out of your day to learn about how to make your resume even more effective. And as Jeff mentioned, we'll be interactive today. So we'll try to make it fun for you. And so we'll be using the features in Zoom today. So if everyone could click on the participant box right now, and I'm going to do the same thing. And you can see all the participants, and there are some options at the bottom of the participant box, the green check mark and the red X. So at this time, I'll ask a question. If you have seen one of these Resume Thursday sessions before, click the green check mark at the bottom of your participant box. And if you've never seen it before, click the red X. And we have a mixture of people. I think a few more people who've attended before. And what we do is we try to review key messages every week. And they say you have to hear something 7 times for it to really sink in, especially when you're going through times of change. And so it's great to hear it. And we present it slightly differently every time. And then each week we try to incorporate new content as well. And then during the second half, we review a different resume every week. So it's different every week. So we try to change it up for the people that have come back, and for the people that are here for the first time, you'll hear the basic material that we always try to review. Good. And then we will also be using the chat feature. So if everybody could go in and open up their chat box, if you hover over the Zoom menu at the bottom of your screen and click chat, let's share the chat box. And this is sometimes where Zoom doesn't want to do it for me, so I turn on annotate. There we go. I'll click another thing, it'll work. I got it to work for me. Just a little trick for those out there, if the chat box doesn't come up for you, I just clicked on the annotate button and the chat box popped up. So good, and that's where we can share questions. And to get us warmed up, I do have an opening question for everyone. So if everyone could go into the chat function and answer this question: why should you customize your resume every time you apply for a job? Just type in a few key words to answer this question in the chat box. And if you don't think you should customize your resume, go ahead and share your perspective about that. So why do you think you should customize your resume every time you apply for a job? And I'm seeing lots of positive answers coming in, and we'll be providing some tips today on how you can customize your resume. And several people are saying for the ATS, the applicant tracking systems, and people say write for the machine, because the machine doesn't care about fancy fonts or formatting. They care about the words you're saying. So write for the machine, the ATS. And people are saying, because yeah, every job is different. Even if you apply for 6 different project manager jobs, if you really read the job description, they're looking for different traits, different skills, and so you want to customize it. And people are saying to get noticed, great one, and specifics for the job to best be a match for that job description, and also to insert relevant experience in your job experience to align to that job. And then somebody says they don't customize a resume if I worked with someone who knows my work already. And that can work, and it's even a little better if you do customize it for the job. And to share your experience that is specific to that position. And somebody said to telegraph that you're a perfect match. I love that. That's a very strong statement with a good, strong verb. I like that. Good. And keywords plus show more interest. Yeah, it does show that you've invested a little more time and you're showing interest in that position if you modify it. So excellent answers. Couldn't have said it better myself. And by way of background, my name's Carol Brickel, and I have 30 years of experience, 30 plus years of experience working as a hiring manager. And I worked for an IT company called EDS for many years, and it was acquired by Hewlett Packard. And then I retired in 2012 and actually got a job as a recruiter because I knew so many people had been laid off, and I wanted to help people find jobs. So I wanted to learn how the recruiting industry really works. So I worked as an agency recruiter, and then I did some corporate recruiting work as well. And I've placed people in a variety of different jobs: accounting, finance, IT, project management, HR, a variety, sales, a variety of different jobs. And like Jeff, I volunteer with the pit crew, the Dallas pit crew. And I think, Jeff, do you have a little bit of information you can share in the chat box about the pit crew? That's the practice interview team. And if you spent many hours working on updating your resume, you should also spend many hours practicing your interview skills. And the pit crew is a great place to do that. All you have to do is send an email to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com, send your resume and a sample job description. It could be for an actual interview or just a sample job you just want to practice, and sign up, and we'll put a panel together and run you through an interview and provide feedback. We'll share what you did well and what you could do to even enhance your interview skills. Highly recommend that, because how do you get a job? You get it really through the interview. You get in the door with your resume, but you get the job with the interview. And then also I've gone through a training program and certification program, and I am certified by the Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches. And I had to pass a 70 question essay test to do that, but I actually had fun doing it. And I wanted to share this with you because I recently retired from Next Step Recruiting, but I keep closely in touch with the director of that organization and my recruiting friends there. And this week, these are some of the hot jobs that they are recruiting for. So if you meet the requirements for any of these jobs, feel free to send your resume to me, to Carol Brickel, and I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. Send your resume to me and I'll get you to the right recruiter. They're looking for a senior manager of accounting. So any of you that are in the accounting or finance field, give me a green check mark in the participant box if you work in accounting or finance. Go to the participant box and give me a green check mark if you're an accounting finance type of person. I'm not seeing many people right now. Okay, but if you are, they have an opening for a senior manager of accounting in Frisco, also a staff accountant in Plano, and a senior tax associate in Dallas, and an escrow officer. Well, I'm curious now about our audience. Give me a check mark if you're an HR type of person. Because also sometimes Next Step Recruiting recruits for HR people or administrative. Okay, I'm starting to see a couple of check marks. Great. Okay. How about sales? If you do sales, starting to see some check marks. Okay, good, good. Okay, so if you do meet any of these requirements, or if you have accounting, finance, HR background, even sometimes they recruit for sales, so good. So this is our agenda today. During the first part, we'll review some key topics relating to writing resumes. We'll talk about applicant tracking systems, and I'll share some advice from experts. I've interviewed one, and then I'll share some expert advice from the organization where I was certified. Then we'll walk through some key components of a resume that are important. And we'll pause for any Q&A, and then we'll review some sample resumes. And thank you, we already have 2 people that have shared their resume that we will review live today. We'll talk about what we like and any opportunities for enhancements. So first of all, we'll talk about applicant tracking systems, and I'll share some guidance. And if anybody in the audience, if you have any advice or experiences that you've experienced regarding working with applicant tracking systems, feel free to share any advice you've heard in the chat box. So applicant tracking systems are those online systems when you apply for a job online. And the systems names are typically Taleo, iCIMS, Workday has an applicant tracking component to it. And the way these systems work is that they read the data in your resume and they parse the data. They pull out the data and put it in the database. Your, such as your name, your contact information, the job titles that you've held, the companies you've worked for, the dates, and that gets put into the database. Good, and thank you, Jeff, for annotating with check marks. That's really cool. And one thing about applicant tracking systems to make your resume ATS friendly is don't use any special characters, even underlining and boxes, any special formatting. Don't do that. Make it clean so that it won't mess up that parsing process. And then also, if you're submitting a resume in Microsoft Word format, don't use the header section because that information will not be read. But you do want to ensure that the keywords, that you use keywords in your resume that align to the job description, because the system will be rating you based on how good of a match you are. And you can use a tool called jobscan.co to compare your resume to a job description to see if you're a 70% match or a 30% match. And that'll give you feedback regarding whether or not you need to update your resume a little bit more. Good. And then somebody made a comment regarding ATS systems to not use a hyperlink for your LinkedIn address, leave it as plain text. I haven't tested that. I haven't observed any issues with that, but if you've actually tested that, write a little bit more. Which system did you test that with? Or where did you hear that? Because I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about that. Because I have heard that you can use a URL, and so I'm interested in hearing more about that, if anybody has any updates. And then often when you're applying online, you can attach a resume as an attachment. And if you choose, you can use an alternate version of your resume with fancy formatting, boxes and underlines and such if you want to maintain 2 different versions of your resume, but that's a personal choice. I always just chose to go with a clean version and just update just one version. And then often you have an option to include a cover letter as well. I will tell you honestly, as a recruiter, if I had 300 applicants for a job and the system sorted the top 10%, That's still 30 resumes to go through. And I usually didn't get through that many because my phone would start ringing. Applicants would be calling me. I didn't have time. And so I didn't have time to look at the cover letters. So if it requires you to do one, don't spend a lot of time on it. But you do often have the option to. Okay. Somebody said regarding using the LinkedIn URL, somebody says they're going to have to check on that. You've heard you can use the www, but to leave out the HTTP or HTTPS. So those are things maybe to double check regarding the use of the URL. Great. And also what I wanted to do is share with you some really great advice from one of our local experts, from Gail Houston. She was very gracious in preparation for one of these sessions. I reached out to her because she's so well known in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and she teaches the career transition workshops, and she graciously provided me with her 5 favorite tips about resumes. And her first one is to add your customized LinkedIn URL on your resume, either in text or the actual link. And the way you can make to customize your URL so that you take off all those extraneous numbers is you can go into LinkedIn and edit your profile. And in the upper right-hand section of your screen, there is an option to click on that says edit public profile and URL. And you can edit that and take out all those extraneous numbers. So it is, recruiters like to see your LinkedIn profile or URL on your resume. And then also ensure that your email on your resume is professional. For example, mine is brickell.carol@yahoo.com because so it reflects my name, something professional. It doesn't say Carol likes cats at yahoo.com. You want to make sure it is professional. And very recently I had to provide feedback to somebody I was coaching about the email address they used because it wasn't related to their name at all. And also, if you live in a suburb that maybe people won't recognize, sometimes it's good to put the closest city or largest city on your resume. So for example, if you live in a suburb that people don't recognize in the Dallas area, maybe just put Dallas, Texas. And some recruiters search on zip code, so you can include zip code if you wish. Okay. And then Gail recommends that you have a focus statement or a title at the top of your resume. And we'll show an example of this. So if you've been a Java engineer, put Java, and you're applying for a Java job, put Java engineer on the top of your resume. So it's very clear who you are. And then also create an accomplishment-based resume, not just a list of responsibilities so it reads like a job description. And we'll show you how to do that by playing the so what game. So we'll show you a little bit later how to do that. And then also she says, be careful with formatting. You don't want it so crowded that a recruiter can't easily read it. You need to write for the machine and have all the keywords, but also write for a human and have lots of white space so it's easy to read. So those keywords jump out. And Gail recommends 2 pages if you're experienced. I've seen very experienced people try to fit it onto 1 page, and it's okay to make it 2 pages. And Gail also recommends that. And in some industries, it's even recommended to have a longer resume. For example, in the government area, higher education, or highly technical roles. Sometimes it can go on to 3 or 4 pages to show extra certifications or publications. And that's fine. So it was really nice of Gail to share these tips with me. Then also, and if anybody has any comments or questions throughout this, you're welcome to go into chat. And also quickly, I wanted to share guidance that I received from the organization where I got certified, because I thought this was good to get this information from a group of experts. They recommend make your resume easy to read with lots of white space, and make sure it's free from spelling, punctuation, and grammatical errors. Last week, I was coaching somebody who had a lot of wonderful experience. I had a beautiful resume with great experience. However, in their areas of expertise, on the third column, the spacing was out of alignment. There were some extra spaces in there. So when I looked at her resume at first glance, I thought, oh, there's an error in her resume in terms of spacing. So that was the first thing I noticed. So you don't want that to be the first thing somebody notices about you. And when I talk to other recruiters and ask them, what percentage of resumes typically have some sort of error in them? The answer is usually about 90, 95%. So be careful, especially as you're customizing your resume every time, to take an extra look, have somebody you trust look at it, make sure it's error-free. Also, spell out acronyms the first time and put them in parentheses, and then you can use the acronym afterwards. There are a few exceptions to that, like SAP. Like, give me a green check mark if you know what SAP stands for, and I'll give you a prize. I don't have any prizes to give out, but there's a check mark out there, but maybe from a previous question. I don't know. SAP stands for the names of the owners of the company, but in most other cases, try to spell it out. And then also make sure your resume focuses on the skills related to the target job. And it includes qualitative and quantitative accomplishments. And we'll show you a couple of ways to do that. And yeah, SAP is a computer company based in Germany. And I think the SAP comes from the name of the owners. Okay. And somebody has a question. I heard that if you have titles after your last name, like MBA in your resume, then the HS will read it as your last name, and you could be booted out of the system. Very interesting, because I often do see people say MBA, PMP. If anybody else has had that experience where they've put, comma PMP or CPA or MBA and it's caused issues, let us know. That's the first time I've heard that.
But Carol, wouldn't you, when you upload your resume, don't you then get to review the data that the system puts in, so that if that did happen, you could go update it and correct it?
And modify it. Yeah, you should be able to modify your field name. Yes, and somebody said sometimes yes and sometimes no. It does depend on the system. Like I mentioned, there's ASIMS, there's Taleo, there's Workday, there's Bullhorn. There are all these systems work a little bit differently. Wow. Okay. Well, then be sure to say PMP certified in your description or whatever that is, or MBA. So that's a very good point. Okay, good. And let's see. And then this organization also says no graphics, no pictures, no photos. You don't want to include a photo on your resume. There have been some employment law issues about that. No underlines, no boxes for ATS systems. Right. And now we'll talk about characteristics of good resumes. Basically, the overall goal is to make it easy for those ATS systems, again, right for the machine, because those machines are reading those words, and to make it easy for the screeners, so make it easy also for the humans to determine that you're a good match for the job. So you want to make sure the formatting is clean, lots of white space, the overall length we've talked about being two pages. There are exceptions for that, like governments. And then I often get the question, how many years of experience should I show on the resume? And there are basically 3 different options. And Jeff is loading a poll for everyone to complete, because there are 3 different options, and we will be sharing lots of different pieces of information. And it's really up to you to decide what works best for you. And so when you're thinking about how many years of experience you show on your resume, what do you think is best for you? The first option is to show all of your years of experience. And I applied for a job at the age of 60, and I showed all of my experience from 1980 on. So I chose the first option, to show all of my experience. And that actually worked well for me. I was networking with people that knew me, so I just put it all out there. So that worked for me. The other option is to cut it off after 10 or 15 years. Now, as a recruiter, I've had some issues with that when I've seen resumes chopped off like that. They look chopped off. And I've seen it cause issues in interviews, because when I ask a question, tell me about a time you managed a really complex project. If they say, well, when I was at IBM, I was managing this huge project, and I'm looking at the resume going, wait a minute, I'm not seeing IBM on the resume. And then I've literally had people say, oh, I didn't include that. That was so long ago. It just kind of caused confusion. And, but some people do that. The third alternative is to spend more space on your most recent 10 to 15 years, but then add another heading that says prior relevant experience, and then list the names of relevant companies and job titles that you had. And you don't have to include dates if you don't want to on your resume. Now, when you apply online, sometimes it'll ask you to put it in the job application. So that's an option that most people go to, and that's a good recommendation. I see in our audience today, 58% of people actually chose that option. So that's fun to see the polling capability. Thanks, Jeff, for adding that in. That's great. And I'm wondering if there's a way I can take that off my screen. Just hit X. Great. Okay. So now I'm going to look at the chat box real quick. You shouldn't have any fields in your resume. You see a triangle in the ATS won't read it. Yes. So if you have any special formatting or even special, the default bullet points are okay, but if you make those any like triangles or chevrons or check marks, that can really throw off the ATS. Okay. And then somebody received negative feedback in an interview over the especially if there were no dates. Okay, so somebody did get some issues about that. Previous experience, I think, is what that's referring to, if there are no dates. So if you feel like you could add the dates if you wish. So I haven't heard anybody getting any negative feedback about that, but each recruiter is different. So, and once again, you'll get lots of advice, and it's really up to you to decide what works best for you, and also what works best for you in the situation that you're in, because it may vary depending on whether you're applying for a job with people you know versus people you don't. And now we'll talk about key components of a resume. And today we'll be sharing a resume format based on a format that I used when I was working as a recruiter and now working as a career coach, based on feedback I'd gotten from hiring managers regarding what they like to see. And thank you, Jeff, for posting it in the chat box so people can go into the chat. You can download this, and also there's a sample cover letter as well in the chat box. And as I was going through my certification, they also shared a recommended layout for resume, and it's very similar to this. And it's also very similar to the one that they teach in the career transition workshop modules. And so these are the key components. The heading, the summary, key accomplishments is an optional summary section. And then professional experience, previous relevant experience if you choose to do that, and then education and software. And Jeff, you just got a compliment. Somebody said you'd make a great administrative assistant. Yes, I would hire you, but I would also like you as an assistant co-facilitator as well.
You should see the 5 different screens I have going right now.
Yes. Or a technical guru, I think. All right. And then in the heading in your resume, you want to make it very clean, easy to read. You don't want to use up a lot of space, and make best use of the real estate on the top of your screen, because I'll have people go into chat. When a recruiter looks at your resume, what do you think is the average amount of time a recruiter spends looking at resumes? I just read a statistic, and I thought it was absolutely true because it matched how much time I spent. So how much time do you think a recruiter spends reading a resume? And I'm getting some answers that are right on target. I used to say 5 to 10 seconds, and I read a study in a Forbes article that said 7.4 seconds. Somebody said 7 seconds, good for you. Somebody said 30 seconds. No, we never did. We would read about this far, maybe get to the first job, jump down to the bottom, make sure the education and software skills match. That was it. So yeah, so you want to make it very clean. You don't want to use up a lot of space because they're just reading the top part of your resume and doing a quick scan. And as I mentioned before, you do not need to include your physical street address. And somebody said, recruiters don't spend enough time. Well, they don't, and it's real world because a typical corporate recruiter is trying to fill 20 different job orders, and each order has 300 resumes each. So they're getting phone calls all day, and they're getting pressure to make 20 to 50 phone calls a day. So, or touch points nowadays, text messages and emails. So those recruiters are underwater, and if they don't meet their targets, they get fired. So they don't have much time. So you want to make it easy for them. Good. And yeah, somebody mentioned that they've heard recruiters disqualify candidates based on where they live. There have been some lawsuits about that. And that's why sometimes putting the generic Dallas, Texas is okay. Not putting the street address is recommended. And
but I mean, I remember Gail Houston talking about when every search she does, she always does a zip code search, and she's looking for people who live within 20 or 25 miles of the office because she doesn't think somebody who lives 45 or 50 miles away is going to want to travel an hour and a half to get to the office every day. So
right.
Just know that recruiters are using zip code searches just so they can find people who are willing to do the job.
Right, right. That does happen. And if I find a really hot candidate, though, I will go ahead and call them and say, okay, the location's here. How are you going to do that? And they're like, oh, I'm in an apartment. I'm going to relocate. You know, so I'm like, good, okay, that's great. So yeah, depending on your situation there, excellent. Okay, and then also, LinkedIn, you should use greater city. Use the greater. Oh, in LinkedIn, you could say DFW area to open it up a little bit. And actually one recruiting or company that I recruited for, they had a limitation. People had to live within 20 miles of that job, or say that they're going to move, within 20 miles. And the location statement impacted by positions being remote, then the statement isn't really necessary for that. Great questions. Then the next part of the resume is very important. And this is the summary section where you want to have a brief statement of who you are as a professional relating to that job. You do not want to include an objective that says, I'm seeking a job where I can grow my skills and contribute in a productive manner. You want to say, I am, what you're looking for with the skills you're looking for in your job description. And then you want to include areas of expertise. And we recommend 3 columns of 3 skills, very easy to read with space in between them and cleanly lined up columns. And this section especially, you really want to modify for every job. And then you also want to make sure your bullet points in your professional summary align as well. And then after your areas of expertise on your resume, if you're applying for a job, especially that has a lot of targets and very quantitative, you may want to consider having a summary key accomplishments area where you're summarizing key accomplishments over several of your recent jobs. And I especially see this to be very effective for sales jobs, business development jobs, even recruiting jobs, and financial jobs. Great. Somebody has a question. Have you seen Dallas-Fort Worth listed together as a Metroplex, or will ATS kick that out? I don't think it would kick it out. I don't know if anybody else has any opinion about that. As long as it says Dallas, Fort Worth. Great questions, very good detailed questions. Some of these things you have to almost test out. Okay, good. And then the next section is obviously very important. And this is the professional experience section in reverse chronological order. And you want to make sure it's easy to read with the dates you've been at that company, very right justified. And I like to see them in bold so that they stand out. And make sure that your verbs are parallel. For jobs in the past, make sure your verbs are all equally in the past tense and ending in ED. You wouldn't believe the number of resumes I see where it's a mixture of verbs and past, present, ing, you know, all different tenses. And for every job, you should only list about 5 to 8 key bullet points per job. I've seen some resumes with 15, 20 bullet points, and a hiring manager is just never going to read that many bullets. You want to focus on the key accomplishments relating, especially relating to the job you're applying for. And again, these bullet points should focus on results. And you might ask me, how do I make my bullet points focus on results? And what my answer to that is play the so what game. If you've heard about my so what game, give me a green check mark in the participant box. If you've heard me talk about the so what game, a couple people have heard about it. Okay, that's actually quite fun. And I learned about this when I was actually working on writing answers to RFPs, writing proposals to requests for proposals. And whenever you talked about benefits, we would always ask each other, so what? And if we could answer that question, that meant we hadn't gotten to the true benefit. So it also works with resumes. And this is a real story. One time I was coaching somebody who's a business analyst, and they had a bullet point on their resume where they, under their professional experience, they said they developed a Visual Basic program to automate the conversion of data. And I said, yeah, that's a good bullet, but so what? What was the outcome? What was the result? What was the impact? And he thought about it a minute. He said, oh, you know, it actually did reduce the time it spent to migrate the data and eliminated errors and also increased our client satisfaction. So he ended up rewording that bullet point to start with a stronger verb, focusing on the result, reduced the data migration time, eliminated errors, and increased the stakeholder confidence by developing that Visual Basic program. So you can probably go through your resume and pick out a few bullet points where you can play the so what game. Then another thing that's important, and I'll ask my assistant to play along with me on this to help annotate this slide. And I'm kidding, Jeff, you're not my assistant. We partner well together on these webinars, and I always appreciate it. And one question we get very frequently is, how do we show if we've had multiple jobs within one company? Because many times I see resumes where people write the job title and put the dates outright justified. And when they do put those right justified for all the jobs, it looks like they've hopped from company to company. It looks like they've been a job hopper. But the recommended approach is to put the date that you're with, the full dates that you're with the company, like in this example, 2004 to 2012. And then for each job, in parentheses up against the job title, put the lengths of time that you're with each job. And this tells a stronger story. It shows the longevity you're with the company. It shows that you've progressed and maybe even got promotions at that company, and it shows longevity. So thank you, Jeff, for doing that annotation on that slide. So that really tells a much stronger story. And what if the first company was a wholly owned subsidiary of the second company? And in that case, like I did that with my resume, and we'll show an example of that. Yes, let me talk through this example and then kind of address your question. If your company has changed names, what you can do is put the name. There are two different options. You can put the current name of the company followed by the old name, or give the old name and then show the date that it was acquired. And for example, in 2012, when I retired from HP Enterprise Services that had acquired EDS, my resume said HP Enterprise Services, formerly EDS. The other way I could have written it was EDS acquired by Hewlett Packard in 2008, which was when we got acquired. So that's a couple of options for how to handle that situation. If you have further questions about that, people are welcome to reach out to me if you have any further questions. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. And during this pandemic, I'm offering even a free session to those who have a financial need during the rest of August to provide coaching for people during this time. And somebody said they've been through lots of acquisitions. And so that does happen quite a bit. And then also, of course, on your resume, you want to show your degree and your software skills. These are very important. And again, make sure they align to the job description. If the job description asks for Microsoft Excel, which sounds kind of basic, put it on your resume and look for any other tools that they're looking for. And now this is a very important slide and a very important task that you need to go through. Every time you're applying for a job, take a few moments to study that job description and highlight, really study the keywords they're looking for. So for this job description for a business analyst, they're looking for people that can document business requirements, people that can improve processes and create flow charts, people that are familiar with Agile, Visual Studio. So you want to make sure that those keywords are appearing on your resume. Improving processes, flow charts, Agile, and Visual Studio down in the software skills. So it just really just takes a few minutes to do that. And that can really impact the effectiveness of your resume. And as a career coach, when I work with people, this is where I spend a lot of time helping people customize their resumes to the job description. And then I also spend time with people helping them prepare for interviews as well. And then somebody said, how long do you keep the acquisition on your resume? I don't know, maybe it depends on the situation. I kept it for a long time. And then somebody said you show a junior college. Should you show a junior college if you completed a BA at a university? I think you could just include the bachelor's from the university unless you really want to show that junior college. I think that's a case-by-case basis and based on your preference. The recruiter, if the job requires a bachelor's, you'll want to definitely show the bachelor's. Now at this time, I'll pause to see if anybody else has any questions, and then I will also share my first sample resume. Give me a second to pull it up. And Jeff, if you can give me a thumbs up if you can see the resume, okay. I'm not gonna touch my screen. Yes, it does that. I don't even touch the screen. Sorry, I'll do that again. For some reason, when I touch the screen, it takes me out of sharing mode. Can you see it again, Jeff? Okay, good. Okay, thank you. So thank you for sharing your resume. What I'm going to do is I'm going to simulate a scroll through like a recruiter is looking at this resume. I'm going to scroll through it real quickly. And everyone out there in the audience, if you could go into the chat box and type in some words about what you like about the resume. And if you see anything that you would recommend for improvement, go ahead and type those into the chat box. And so I'm going to scroll down it like, you know, a recruiter would be scanning a resume, looking at the heading, looking at that summary section, skills and expertise, and performance highlights where they highlight, you know, key accomplishments. And these are quantitative key accomplishments. Good. And then professional experience with the dates right justified. Good, good, good. And then some prior experience, education, some awards, and professional affiliations. Look at all those awards. Okay, that caught my eye because you don't see that very often on a resume. And let's see, lots of great comments. Thank you to the audience. And if anybody else has any additional comments, you're welcome to add those in. Somebody said great use of white space, easy to read. Somebody said get rid of the +1. I think that's fine unless you're applying internationally. I think that's good. Good spacing, excellent resume. Somebody said it's organized. Should the employer name be in all caps? All capitals are hard to read. And so I actually recommend against that, except for the headings. So thank you for asking that, because I do see that sometimes, and it's harder for the eyeballs to read it.
And should they
In
move
the
to,
footer,
like,
okay.
Cincinnati, Ohio? Should Cincinnati, Ohio just be after LensCrafter, or do you want it centered? It looked like he just centered all the locations under, by each line.
And they're not exactly centered, so that kind of throws off the spacing a little bit. Like that first one, Cincinnati isn't centered.
Yeah, Cincinnati, Ohio is capitalized, but then the other cities are not capitalized.
Yes, yes. So I usually just bring those over closer with a comma, company name, comma, city, and not make it caps. Okay, good. And locations needed. Sometimes it helps tell the story, and that's a case-by-case basis. Okay.
His second and third, his third and fourth bullet point underneath performance highlights, something's wrong because the dots are not lining up correctly.
The dots and the spacing are different, so you'll want to fix those. The size of those are different and the spacing is different. So good eye, Jeff. And I believe this top part, somebody said it looked like it was in the header, but I don't think it's in a header. Okay. Now there is an underline, and I get afraid of underlines because I hear with some systems, the underline can throw the reading and the ATS off. And somebody said there's a footer. I don't see a footer. Okay. And I do like the fact that it says Vice President or Senior Vice President Sales and Operations. If you're applying for a Vice President, Senior Vice President Sales and Operations job, great. If you're applying just for a sales job, maybe it's a senior leader, maybe just say senior leader or sales senior leader, or so you may want to tweak that slightly based on the job. And somebody asked, should we include page numbers? Oh, there is a footer down at the bottom on the second page. Most of the times now people are looking resumes electronically and it's very clear it's on the second page. It's not as necessary it was in the old days when recruiters would have stacks of paper resumes. So it's not as important. So good questions there. Okay. See any other, I'm sorry, I'm scrolling back and forth. So I did want to make a comment, very nice, short, brief summary that would be very easy to customize. It's nice to have this only 3 lines long, very good. And skills and expertise, again, I think the spacing is correct on these. Now you have 15 areas. That's a lot to read. I think the magic number is 9, maybe 12 at the most. And then the performance highlights, good strong verb. I would just fix up the formatting there because that's the first thing I saw on the resume, that there was an issue with formatting. Okay. And I like the short little tagline in parent or in italics. I'd probably put a period at the end of that.
Something I did on my resume right underneath explaining the name of the company, which I like that a lot because some people may not know who they are. I always put it, just because of my positions, report it to the owner, report it to the manufacturing manager, so people could see a level of where I was at in a company. And I always thought that was beneficial to have on there also.
Yes, excellent point, Jeff. Thank you. And somebody asked, is this redundant to say Vice President, Senior Vice President? What I'd recommend is, depending on the job that you're applying to, if you're applying to Senior Vice President, just have Senior Vice President. If it's just VP, just say VP. And so you'd modify that every time. And somebody said the periods aren't necessary in performance. Rule of writing, as long as you're consistent, even though they're not full sentences, as long as you're consistent, it's okay, but they really aren't needed. And be consistent with company names, like if you hyphenate it, like Walmart, is Walmart in here? Formerly Walmart stores, okay. Okay, so it explained that, that somebody said you have to be consistent with the name. And there's a longer comment there, okay. Any other, let's see, other suggestions? I was looking to see if there are any multiple jobs within a company. Not really seeing that, okay. Prior experience, you didn't include the dates there. So for the person whose resume this is, let us know if you got any negative feedback by not including dates and the prior experience. Let us know what kind of reaction you've gotten. And nice awards. Some of those might be, I mean, you could include maybe the biggest award you ever received under your performance or key accomplishment highlights, you know, awarded, whatever that is. Somebody said the professional experience dates are confusing. Oh yeah, that is, yeah, this one says 2018-19, this one says 2013 to present. Okay, I think I would reverse those, put the thing that goes to present on top and put the 2008 to 2019 job underneath that. And it does show some overlap, so it looks like you're maybe not a full-time instructor, but you serve as an instructor at SMU, which is a wonderful thing. Maybe you adjunct instructor or something, or field instructor or something to show that it's a kind of a part-time thing.
And also that first job, the tense are not correct. Instead of lead, it should be led, since he's no longer.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, led.
It should be built
Yes.
instead of build. So you need to change those to past tense.
The word, yes, and check the word oversight to make sure that's spelled correctly. And on this one doesn't have software. If for a VP job, if they're not asking for a lot of software skills, then you probably don't need to include that. So great on this one, and thank you very much for sharing this resume. And we have a couple
While Carol's calling up the other resume real quick, you know, just one of the things to remember is that you really should have like a 10-page resume, everything you've ever done since you graduated high school, and include high school jobs if they were relevant, because when you see a job description, you then take that 10-page resume and you start eliminating everything that's unimportant. So yeah, you could have 20 bullet points, but then you pick the 9 that are on the job description. You pick the couple lines that are only for that one thing. So, you know, if you have that master resume, which you update every time and it just becomes longer and longer, you never have to go back going, oh, wait, did I ever do that? Oh yeah, you know, I did that back then.
Great, thank you, Jeff, for doing that, because I had to pull up this the resume twice again. So thank you for doing that. And we just have a couple minutes left, and I'll do a quick scroll through of this one as well. And for we have a pretty talented audience out there today. If you have any comments about what you'd like, any suggestions for improvement, type them into chat. So I'll scroll down the header information, the professional summary, professional experience section. Lots of professional experience, goes on to a 3rd page, it looks like. And then technical summary, and then education. And this is where sometimes, in certifications, and this is where sometimes with technical resumes, it often does go to a 3rd page.
His first 3 lines there are centered, they're not left justified.
Correct.
And I would change that.
And core competencies and achievements, they're all blended together. I would separate those. Core competencies, and we like the word areas of expertise, or we don't like it, but we've heard that recommended. Areas of expertise is stronger than core competencies or key skills. I would list those out so that they jump out, but there's lots of white space, because once again, the recruiter's only going to spend 7 seconds, looking at your resume. And then if you do want to have a section of key achievements and highlight 3 or 4 quantifiable key achievements that are related to the job, you could do that. So I would rework this section.
Achievements is also misspelled.
What was that again, Jeff?
Achievements is also misspelled.
Oh, yes. I before E, except after.
So you've immediately been kicked out of a search. Somebody's going to look at it and go, boom, out.
Yes. Yes. Okay. And then,
And I would move the dates of a job, move all those dates, right, justified. And you don't need to put
right.
down the months, but
Okay.
I like the fact that you put down short-term contract or contract that tells people that's good.
That's fine. That's fine. And somebody asked about the number of bullet points. There's 3 for this one. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's about the maximum number of bullet points I'd want to see. And bullet points should be strong statements of what you accomplished. 1 line, 2 lines at the very most. It should not go on to 3 lines. Like, for example,
Consistent with day-to-day
facilitated all
maintenance.
scrum ceremonies and removed impediments and blockers. That's
what?
so what game with, you know, you facilitate all scrum ceremonies. So what was the result? Yes. And somebody made the comment to show achievements. Yeah, and if possible, you don't want to break up a job like this one breaks over a page change. All right. So I think we are out of time, Jeff, so I should give this back to you, but good job with this. If you have any follow-ups on this one, feel free to reach out to me and I can help you with that. Okay.
Well, Carol, thank you very much. Here's Carol's, here's what she looks like on LinkedIn so you can find her. If you do send her a message or you try to connect with her, please, please, please put down how that you know somebody whenever you send a LinkedIn request. Always connect with somebody that you either saw them in this resume presentation or whatever. Always, always, always do that. I personally will not connect with anybody who sends me the generic invitation, but I'll always connect with somebody if they tell me how we met. All right. For those people who are on Facebook, if you want to get the sample cover letter and the sample T cover letter, please just send me an email, send it to webmaster@careerdfw.org, and I will be glad to get that sent to you. That's webmaster@careerdfw.org. If you know somebody who lives outside the DFW area or somebody who's unemployed and doesn't know about these sessions, please let them know about the free programming that we're putting on. As I mentioned at the beginning, I also facilitate and lead the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have a short presentation on staying safe during your job search from a security standpoint, things to watch out. And then we're going to have open forum. So we'll talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. We've got, you know, people, experts that are with us who will be glad to offer their opinions, and you'll be glad to, you know, speak up and offer your opinion too. So we look forward to having you tomorrow morning from 9:30 to 11:30. Next Tuesday, from 1 to 2 o'clock, we're going to have LinkedIn Tuesday. Our speaker next week is Locke Alderson. And then Wednesday, session 2 of 13, preparing for specific interview and networking work and how networking works on Interviewing Wednesday. So please join us. All these sessions, you can find us on Zoom, or you can join us on Zoom or via Facebook Live. Be sure to check the Career DFW calendar for other, you can get all the details on and log information if you go to the calendars there. This session has been recorded. It'll be on the Career DFW Facebook page. It'll be on the Career USA YouTube channel. Please check each page. If you follow us on Facebook, you'll get an alert every time we go live. And you can see all these presentations on the Career USA YouTube channel. I'll have this one up there in a couple hours this afternoon. On YouTube, here's what it looks like, Career USA YouTube channel. If you click on playlist where you see that green arrow, up will come the playlist that I've put together, and they're by subject matter. And you'll see underneath Effective Resumes, View Full Playlist. If you click on that, you'll see all the prior sessions that we've done. You can go back and watch any of them as many times as you'd like if you want to, you know, fine tune something. So please remember, Career DFW is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Everybody is a volunteer. All of our speakers, Carol, myself, we don't get paid to do this. We're here to help you land your next great opportunity. Career DFW survives on donations. It helps keep these kinds of things going. Please consider when you land your next great opportunity to please make a donation. And if you can, if your company offers matching donations, please look us up. If you don't see us on the list, please you know, look us up. And if not, if you don't see us, contact me. I will get our name on the list. I've done that with a couple different registries already. So once again, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. Carol, thank you. Great information. And for everybody else, have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thanks, Jeff. And thanks, everyone. Great audience. Bye-bye.
Thank you.